Barbell deadlifts, barbell squats, overhead press, lat pull down, chest press. And when you're ready to stop, repeat. That's how we climb Olympia. When you push that extra rep, when you pull another set, when you lift that one last rep, you will climb the mountain and no one will forget. Bring on the build with the NASM Physique and Bodybuilding Coach Program.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend and co-host, Mr. Ken Miller. Ken, how are you today?
Doing great, Wendy. How you doing? You're looking great. Very pink.
I am good. 2023 has been great so far. How about for you?
Awesome. No complaints. None whatsoever.
Well, good. Well,
Yeah.
You know what? I know both of us have been really, really busy. And I'm really excited to talk about this week because it's actually going over something that I just got back from. I had the honor and privilege to be a part of the Under Armour All-America event this year. And Ken, you joined me last year. So just going through and talking about what they do for these kids. We'll go into detail, obviously, about what the event is itself. But I'm really excited to kind of dive in and talk about it.
Yeah, let's dive in. I mean, this is a great topic from the standpoint that as we're starting the new year, if you're involved with high school sports, you know, if you just finished with the fall, maybe you finished some championship games over November and December. Now you're looking at the next year. And one of the things that we're going to talk about, especially with this Under Armour event and everything that those football and volleyball players did, you know, what we are talking about is some of the big concepts, the big things, the big rocks that every athlete, especially if you're in the high school level, just because you're in high school doesn't mean that you need any less of what the professionals or even college athletes need. And we got some great insight on that last year. And again, you had the experience to do it again this year. So I'm excited to hear about what you just did with Under Armour.
Yeah, so every year in January, actually it's over New Year's. So the last 2 years I've been away from my family over the big holiday, but Under Armour invites the top 100 football players to come and be a part of this football event that is actually, the game is on ESPN, and they have 100 guys that come in, and these are all, these kids have committed to their colleges already. So with the exception, there was 4 people that hadn't at that moment. And during the game, they actually made their commitment on national television. And 2 of them ended up going to Nebraska, which I was like, oh, okay, because they had four or five to choose from that they were kind of in the top running. So everyone was really kind of excited to see where these young men were going. And 100 football players. And then we also had 23. So usually it's 26. We had 23 this year of the top volleyball players that are invited to come. And Under Armour does an amazing job treating these kids like something that they've never had before. I mean, they are fully armed with gear, so shoes and outfits for when they get done, practicing, before they practice, during dinners. It just the amount of clothing and things that they do, brand apparel, is just unbelievable. But then they also, the last 2 years, have invited a recovery team, which is, they asked me to come. I actually became kind of their go-to person because I was a part of this thing called the workout that Under Armour did last year, where they invited the top 8 athletes in various sports, and they had that on television to show the importance of looking at assessments and evaluating like human movement and the way that the body works. Especially, people think that we should treat youth different than professional, like adult athletes, and that's really not the case. We look at the body in general and we treat it and work on it based on what's in front of us. How can we make it better? And because that was so successful, they invited me last year. Ken was a part of that team. I also had 2 other individuals joining us. So there's a team of 4. Ken was unavailable this year. That's the only reason he got invited. But we had, two of our females, Teresa and Angelica, who's been a part of my team for a long time. And then also this year we had Chris Eklund join on. And Chris obviously is a master instructor for for NASM as well. And we looked at every single person that came in. We evaluated kind of how they felt. And we literally, did some manual therapy. We did some stretching. We had the boots available. We used the percussion devices, and we actually taught them the importance of coming to see us before they played and after they played. And it was a lot of work this year, Ken. A lot.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of work last year, from that vantage point. And for those that, haven't seen the Under Armour All-America game on ESPN, as it was televised live when it actually happened this year, as well as last year. And it was great to see that, as well as the volleyball game. And football being as big a sport as it is here in the United States, volleyball got its due time as well when it came to, the exposure it got on ESPN. But, just kind of and I'm again, like, I want to hear about how your experience was this year, but as it was last year, the big thing when it came to interacting with all of these athletes, and these guys, again, Division I athletes, as far as what they're going into next year, because they're all seniors in high school now, those that come to this event, and then they go into their college career starting next season. I think some even actually leave early and heading out there in the spring. But when I'm interacting with these guys and I'm talking to them about recovery, and, of course, there was the table work, and with what my role was more of the, okay, well, let's have you foam roll. Let's have you learn some techniques that you can use when it comes to managing stress and tension, in the lower body, in the upper body, so that if you want a better warm up, if you want a more efficient cool down, if they even cool down, because a lot of times when these guys are done playing, they just take off the pads, take a shower, and then they leave, right? But it was an opportunity for us to educate them on their bodies. And as athletes moving into that next level, you can't take what you've done, in high school, in this example, and think that, okay, what got you here is not going to get you there when you get to the next level, because everybody's just as strong, if not stronger. Everybody's just as fast, if not faster. And, IQ and intelligence when it comes to your sport, that's always going to be relative, but, everybody's at the next level. So in interacting with all of these athletes, whether they were volleyball or football, you had to educate them on, okay, there's going to be a lot more stress on your body, when you get to that level versus, being the big man on campus at high school. It's not like being the big man on campus in college. So getting them to better understand, okay, what's it going to take to stay healthy, not just perform well, but stay healthy and be durable. That was the biggest part of what my experience was with the Under Armour All-America event last year. And I'm predicting that it's kind of the same thing for you guys this year.
It was. And those of you guys joining Ken Miller and myself, Wendy Batts, here today on Random Fit, we're talking about the Under Armour All-America event. I had the chance to work with these fine men and women that were a part of these games. So female being the volleyball, males being the football, different games that were hosted on ESPN. And, Ken, you make a really good point. One of the number one things that we noticed from last year to this year was more people were aware of recovery. And what I mean by that, I felt like the first year we did it, even though they're all brand new athletes that are coming in, they're not repeats, because again, these are seniors that are getting ready to go to their universities that they committed to, at all different types of levels and all over. I was asking, hey, where are you going? What position do you play? all that stuff to try to see if I could coax them into changing their mind and going to the teams that I love. Versus some of the teams that I find rivals, if you will. But it was very eye-opening and actually kind of warmed my heart that more people, I felt, this year understood like what the percussion devices were, or they had foam rolled before. Now, us talking through and making sure they understood the importance of doing it before, and then doing a proper type of, dynamic warm up and activation type exercises before they actually went on the field. I think that was something that was the aha moment, because we kept having the repeats, and we started super early in the morning, and we can take this to a totally different conversation, but us therapists would start super early in the morning, and we worked every single night. We were there until 11:30 p.m. And so, yes, even New Year's Eve, by the way.
Yeah.
So I had 5 minutes to run upstairs, call my family and say, woohoo, Happy New Year. And I can't hear you. Let me call you back, because that was the same time the Georgia game was going on. And there was a lot of chaos going on, because me being from Georgia, that's where my family was. There was a big party going on. However, what we really appreciated was these guys, we saw each person on the table for 20 minutes, and they had this wait list where they signed up on the app. We were busy every single session. Every single slot was taken from the time that we walked in to our hours posted. And it was just phenomenal to see just how appreciative these guys were, because a lot of people had never had manual therapy work. Ken, you and I both know that that's not common. So the fact that Under Armour actually has this come out to show them that this is what they're probably going to have available at their college, or that they may want to look at if they don't, just to keep them healthy. And, going through, they were asking really good questions. And, okay, is static stretching bad? And I thought I wasn't supposed to do that before I worked out. I mean, really good questions where we could actually, to your point, educate these young men and women on the importance of setting themselves up for the best possible results before they even walked onto the court or the field. And then afterwards, the importance to, like you said, for the cool down. And they would get off our table. We would immediately have them go sit in the boots, so recovery boots, for about 20 minutes. And if they didn't get a slot on the table, which these guys were running off of the bus, literally sprinting to be on the table first, because it's the only session they didn't have to sign up for. So first come, first serve, and then everyone 20 minutes after. It was really warming for me in my profession. And I'm sure, you weren't there, but I mean, you can agree to this, that it's finally starting to take hold, and people are really understanding the importance before and after of what a difference it will make throughout a week of just intense training. Especially to your point, most of these guys hadn't been on the field, hadn't touched a ball or the court, if there were our girls on volleyball, for over a month.
Right. Yeah. And I think if we have younger athletes listening to this, for the treatment, or, for the time on the table that they had with Teresa and Angelica and yourself and Chris, for a lot of athletes, and just to put this in context, because just kind of reaching back to my time as a collegiate strength coach, a lot of times the athletes, they won't go to the athletic trainer or the massage therapist unless something's not right. Right. So if their low back is bothering them, if they've got some calf tightness, whatever the situation may be, a lot of times they don't go to the hands-on, the medical professionals, unless they're hurt. Mm-hmm. So, so in the context of what you guys did for this event, and again, I wasn't part of the manual therapy crew last year, even. It was more the strength and conditioning side. So I think the big takeaway for a lot of these guys is that, a lot of times you don't have to wait, if the services are available. So somebody with your not say excessive, but your extensive background, not excessive. You can never have
excessive too.
You can't have extensive background. To preemptively have that level of care, as far as, okay, what are you doing to improve range of motion? What are you doing to strengthen the joint within that range of motion? Then how do you put it all together? Because 20 minutes, that's a good amount of time to educate somebody. Okay, well, if you're feeling this is what you can do for yourself. But if you have a manual therapist like you and your crew this year, then, they're in such good care that it's easy to forget that, or not even be aware of the fact that you guys are preemptively working on these guys. You're not dealing with them because they're hurt. They're not right in front of you. They're not on your table because they're hurt. And the reason why they're running to your tables after getting off the bus is because, instinctively they want to recover better, right? They know how good they can feel before they put on the uniform. so obviously, I mean, whether they realize it or not, is like they're going to realize how good they can feel after they take the uniform off, right? So the services that they had offered to them, if they're lucky enough to be exposed or go to a university that has somebody with your technical skills, especially with, again, you have Angelica, Teresa, and Chris, great manual therapists. So for them to have a body in front of them and to perform the techniques that you guys did on them, it's just, I encourage a lot of athletes, get the treatment if you can get it. A lot of performance related accomplishments are because the football, volleyball, whatever sport you may be involved in, is because you took care of your body, right? You didn't wait till you got hurt.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest thing is people didn't, that had never had table work done. And again, even if you don't have somebody that does the manual therapy and they're going in and manually releasing overactive muscles because they know what those are. I mean, if you have somebody that can stretch you and they're stretching the right muscles based on, like identifying some overactivity just in the way that they're walking and moving and jumping and doing all the things, they realized how much better they felt. Or there were some people that were on the table and they had these nagging pains or, feel like things were pulling in ways that wasn't comfortable. By just teaching them, hey, when you feel this, do this instead. And maybe you're going to see that diminish. And it was like an instant, oh my gosh, like I feel amazing. And then watching them out on the field, the one thing that I really loved about this year was every single person that scored, and it didn't matter which team. I had to be very careful because there was 2 teams this year. Just like last year where we work on both and they're super competitive. But every person that made a touchdown, every person that made incredible plays, all of those people had been on our table for multiple days, and usually before and after. And after the game, many of them, their parents are there. It's a big deal. Like everybody comes in, they're celebrating, they do the MVPs, all the things. They can leave. But a lot of them actually came back to the hotel, because we actually worked out of a hotel versus a mansion this year, which we really liked because we didn't have to do a lot of traveling, just to say thank you, thank you. And, can reach out to you in the future. Maybe you can help us, or if we're working with our athletic trainer, you can talk to them about some stuff that you do. If I notice this is occurring and I can't do the things that you told me to do because they're not working any longer. And it was just nice because that's when, as a fitness professional, no matter what level you are, that's when you start to build those relationships that, people are always like, I want to work with performance in high, like I want to work with professional athletes. Well, start with the youth and really show them, because throughout these years, these are going to be the up and coming next NFL guys or, professional volleyball players that we're seeing at the Olympics. And, really teaching them how to stay healthy is going to make them be able to extend their career, no matter what level they end up going to, whether it's after college or beyond. So I think it's important, in that aspect. And then Ken, I will say this, I think people always say, I love what you do. I wish I could do what you did. We get that a lot as teachers and presenters. But also people are like, oh, I love who you work with and I want to be able to work with your type of clientele. Can you tell them what it means to you and your body when you start doing stuff like that event that is 8+ hours of manual therapy and stretching a day?
It's not all glitz and glamour, right? It's,
no butterflies and unicorns for you.
No puppy dog tails and lollipops. No, it's not. It's actually, I mean, it's rewarding in the end. Like what you said, Wendy. It's like, they come up to you, they thank you, their families thanking you. They had a great. Because whether they realize it or not, you actually made that event happen for them, because of the late nights, because here you are, you're assisting stretching, you're having to talk and educate, and at the same time, if you've got your hands on them, you're trying to feel where they are, and then you're getting some of these positions you have to hold, so you're going to talk to them. But I think the physical side, okay, of what you guys did is just okay. And a lot of people don't realize that as a massage therapist or somebody who does treatment as an athletic trainer, if you're a sister, you're in weird positions from the standpoint like you're leaning over, you're holding a leg up and across, and then you say if you're going to do some activation, you're saying, okay, now push like try and bring your leg down to the table, and they're putting it down into your hand, and now you have to use your shoulders, and you're contorted. I mean, you got to train just to be a manual therapist if you're going to do it without risk of injury to yourself.
Mhm.
But there's the physical side, but the other part of it is that when you've had a chance to, the higher you go, the more subject you are to somebody else's schedule, right? And Wendy, having worked with professional baseball and basketball, if they're done at 3:00, you have to be available at 3:00. So whatever it is you're doing, right, you have to be available. So your schedule is off. You take a nap when you take a nap when you can. But if they want to train at 5 a.m, you're up at 4:00 and you're ready and available before 5:00 if they're going to meet with, let's say, their shooting coach or their receivers coach or the quarterback coach. You have to be ready, and that means like, okay, yeah, you're not staying out late that night. You're if you're concerned about sleep, you gotta kind of reverse engineer your schedule, and you have to manage sleep, because like last year is like, okay, I got 5 hours of sleep. And again, if you're sleeping away at a hotel, strange place, you're not sleeping well anyway.
Mhm.
And then you have to perform for a few hours, and then you have to take a nap. And then when they're ready to go, you have to get up again. So very disruptive from so it's not like, I guess what I'm trying to contrast here is the fact that it's not a 9 to 5. You're not get up, clock in, do your job, clock out. It's you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. And that does play a toll physically, but also administratively, organizationally. You have to know where you're going to be, when you got to be there, logistics of getting in a car, getting on a bus. Do you
All
have
the
to get,
things.
yeah, all the things. When are you going to eat?
Well, that
Right?
was the crazy
When are you
thing.
going to
So today on Random Fit, myself, Wendy Batts, and Ken Miller are talking about the UA All America event that just took place actually the first week of January. It was on ESPN with volleyball as well as football. And so, yeah, we talked about the athletes and how amazing they were, and the importance of recovery and teaching them some stuff. But as a manual therapist, and I'm going to put it out there, it is extremely, like you said, Ken, so challenging on your body. And when you're thinking about 100 different, football players, just for example, and you're
Mhm.
starting with, working 3 or 4 hours in the morning, and you're doing 20-minute sessions back to back to back, no breaks, no nothing. It's just one, wipe the table, wash your hands and do it again. Wipe the table, wash your hands, do it again. And to your point, I mean, you can have 300+ pound linemen in there, and you're trying to get
Oh,
in to loosen up the TFL, or doing pin and stretch things on your calves or your lats. I mean, these are some very big, big people. And I'm not a huge person. And so it really does require me to put a lot of my body weight into these individuals. And like I said, we worked 8+ hours every single day for 6 days that we were there. And by day 2, Ken, all of us were sticking our hands in the sinks, or I had a shower, so I didn't have a bathtub, but if they had a bathtub, we would fill it
mhm.
with ice, or I had a sink, and literally
Yeah.
from elbows up, just for 15, technically they say 12 if you're doing a contrast. I was like literally for 20 minutes just sitting there, and I was so tired because like I said, we finished at 11:30. By the time you got back to your room and you did all the things that you do to get yourself ready, you had 4 or 5 hours max to sleep before you had to repeat and do it again.
Yeah.
And you've got cameras everywhere, because they're taking pictures and they're putting it on, on Under Armour, or they're, taking shots for ESPN. So you don't want to look like you just literally rolled out of bed. I mean, you want to look somewhat presentable. But I actually had rug burn for the first time this year after day 2 with my elbows. And
Mhm.
it feels like rug burn. It's not, but when you're going and trying to slide and glide, all of these individuals are 100% dressed. We go through the clothing and everything. And so your shoulders are beat up, your neck's in weird positions, your low back is sore. And so you need to hurry up and try to make yourself feel better. So we're using percussion devices, we're using ice, we're trying to do some quick activation before these kids run in, and you start your day all over again. And then, like you said, we had 3 hours off. We all three, 4 ran and ate, and then went and took a 2-hour nap and did it again, and then did the same and did it again. So it was a big old mess. I came home at 3:00 in the morning. I was wide awake, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go and ride the bike for an hour because I couldn't sleep.
And that's when you say, hey, Wendy, can you get that spot? Can you get my traps right over here?
Yeah.
You give me 10 minutes, I'll give you 10 minutes.
Yeah. I was like, hey, hubby, because he does what I do. I'm like, can you rub this out right here on my shoulder? And he's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm like,
sorry.
Okay, well,
sorry, honey.
Enjoy your sleep. I'm going to go downstairs and try to fix this.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, again, back to your question, as any strength coach, manual therapist, anybody from the support side of any team, you just can't say thank you enough to them. I mean, as an athlete, because they put the, I don't want to say product, they get the athlete ready to perform. So that's before and or after, because you're going to get your nicks and you're going to get scratched up a little bit. So, to give them a better opportunity to recover, feel good, between practice sessions or between practice and games, that's when more of the athletic training or the medical support staff come into play. But a lot of people don't consider the preventative and the preparatory work and effort that comes along with having someone with your collective skills as you guys performed it. So I hope those guys realize how lucky they were to have you.
Yeah. And again, they were all very appreciative. I mean, obviously I'm extremely appreciative to Under Armour for trusting me with these individuals, as well as there's multiple companies. I mean, guys, the fact that there was like 3 major companies behind the scenes with Under Armour bringing the brand that makes it happen, between, doing everything on the field and the right practices, and then other teams that are managing schedules and food and all the things. I mean, they did an exceptional job, and they do it every year, because this has been, I think it's been over 20 years that they've done something like this, but now they're bringing in the recovery because they're learning more and more about the importance of that. So couldn't say thank you enough to them for the opportunity. Those of you guys that are listening that, maybe aren't fitness professionals, but you have kids, really think about the staff and the available resources that you have. Talk to them about your child. If you have someone that's growing up in different sports, use them, because that's what they're there for. I mean, the things that we saw, even what happened in Buffalo and the medical staff being on, with that type of tragic thing that ended up not being like, had a really positive ending, but if they weren't ready to go, then there could have been a totally different turn. And so I think, looking at that, but then also being appreciative that they can keep you healthy, or your kids, or, you can actually, maybe if you want to, as a fitness professional, grow into that. There are so many different opportunities, because it really is very, very rewarding.
Yeah. And I think one last message on that is the fact that for what you guys did and what we did last year is that, there's different scales, there's different levels of executing what was done with these athletes from a preventative standpoint. Like I mentioned, if you learn how, if you get assessed, right, if you learn how to foam roll, you learn how to do some corrective strategies, what to stretch, some basic activation of some really important muscles, your glutes, your core, your shoulder girdle, your hip girdle, all of that stuff. You can do something to affect how well you feel, how well you recover, how well you prepare. I don't say it's very nice to have a manual therapist like yourself, Wendy, but there are things that can be done. So that's the one last message I want to put out there to all fitness professionals. If you're an exercise enthusiast, just know that with what Wendy talked about, that's not an enigma. That's not right. That's not a unicorn situation. It's out there. You can self-manage and you can do it, right? It's just not going to be as good as having Wendy put her hands on you and try and get some release work in there, but you can do something for yourself. And I think that's one big point about that event, is that, it's great to have the support staff, but the education's out there. If you work with people, or if you're an exercise enthusiast or an athlete yourself, the information's out there. And And fortunately enough, you and I, Wendy, both have the experience through the National Academy of Sports Medicine and how to apply that information. So, Wendy, great work this year. And then, always good to see that there's information propagating out there as far as how athletes can take care of themselves. So just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Random Fit with both co-host Wendy Batts and myself. We definitely appreciate you listening to us, especially as we get into 2023. So if you like what you heard today, we appreciate you listening. But anything else you want to hear, like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, download, all that good stuff. And we look forward to giving you more Random Fit information as we go into this new year. So until next time, everybody, take care and be well.